don't be fooled by Dylan's jersey change. This is being recorded. This is being recorded straight away.
I'm trying to the magic of a camera. The magic of camera.
Unfortunately, I'm wearing the exact same thing. The same jumper, the same t-shirt, the same pants, and the same shoes that you can't see.
You didn't even... Oh, well, here's the thing. Put those shoes up again.
Yeah.
You did commit to the a little bit to the All Blacks...
They are...
theme.
Fairly All Blacks coded.
With the All Blacks away jersey, which I really don't like the white because I feel like we lose every time we're in the white jersey.
I feel like it's grey, not white we lose in. But hello.
Good old 2007.
Welcome back.
Let's go.
Welcome back to the CouchSide Sports Report, but this isn't the CouchSide Sports Report. It's the CouchSide Special Report.
Yes, sir.
Which we're going to do occasionally when we want to do a podcast, but we want it to be separate from our usual weekly offering.
And usually specifically about one thing.
About one thing. And today, it is only about one thing, which is going to be really weird that we only get to talk about one thing, so we can kind of tangent on it.
We're also just going to be talking shit.
We're going to be talking shit the entire time. But we hope you guys enjoyed yesterday's return to the camera, return to visual. We'll be, hopefully, if everything went to plan, on Spotify and YouTube. And this one will hopefully be on both platforms. We'll upload it. It's going to be the same. Well, obviously, you're watching this, the same place everything else is.
Yes, sir.
And today, we're specifically talking about the All Black squad selection for the upcoming France series, which is the first All Black squad of the year. Me and Dylan.
And I'm going to presume it'll also be the squad for the Rugby Championship. They may add a couple of guys, but we'll see what happens.
Plus or minus a couple of guys. They'll beef up the squad in terms of the amount of people, and also some players might pull out due to injury or might be back because of injury.
Yeah.
And so Dylan and I have been very much debating this for several months at this point.
We have.
Constant Facebook messages, constant changes. My squad has gone through quite a lot of changes. There have been injuries over the course of this. There are times where I thought Simon Parker was a shoe-on for this. I thought at times that I could fit AJ Lamb into my squad. I'll talk about all of that eventually.
Yes, sir.
But we've both been through a lot of changes. I know our squads are very similar, apart from one or two players.
Yep.
And we have mentioned some special mentions. I've mentioned more than Dylan, just players who we felt like should be noted that we haven't named them. And I have put through a couple of notes here, which I feel like for Dylan... A couple and just... A couple.
Bro, how many pages you got there?
11.
Couple of pages.
Shout out to the work printer because this printed it. Sure.
Before we start,
I've
got a couple of things, actually a few things. First of all, go follow us Instagram and TikTok at CouchSide.network. You can also watch this on YouTube and Spotify.
Please do.
With video and audio. But if you want to go to YouTube, search up CouchSide.network. We'll be there. But what I'm going to do is kind of run through what we've got. So the squad that the All Blacks will be named, which is this coming Monday. Is it this coming? No, it's not this coming Monday. It's a Monday.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is this coming Monday. I'm running. This is how long we've been recording.
Yeah.
It is this coming Monday, the 23rd of June at 4 p.m. New Zealand time. We've got a 35-man squad. We're going to go through each position. We do have a 36th man because we're trying to be nice. But I'm going to say this. We are no rugby experts.
No.
We are lovers of sport. We love New Zealand sport. Of course, the biggest thing in New Zealand sport will always, I presume, will be the All Blacks.
Yeah.
So, look, these are our squads. We have tried to, for me personally, there have been some selections that I've wanted to make, but I've also been like, look, this is Razor.
If I had full reign, my squad would look completely different. But,
Facts.
it is what it is.
Yeah. And, look, we're going to go through each one, and I'm going to put out front there now, and we say this every time, we are Blues fans. We're going to put our bias there up front.
We are Blues fans.
But I promise you look at these squads, you may say, not as many Blues taken as they would have thought Blues fans would. But with that being said...
I've maybe got one sneak in here, but he's been mentioned by a lot of people, so I don't think it is.
With that being said, should we rock and roll?
So, I got a few important notes, just some bullet points here. Just a heads up, both Tamaiti Williams and Asafo Aumua have been injured and missed rugby over the past couple of weeks. However, Tamaiti Williams has recently returned to the Crusaders matchday squad, but Auma's status is still unknown, as Aumua would have been selected in my squad, and I believe Dylan's squad. An alternative player has also been named, but as Williams has appeared to be fit, I have not named an alternative player for him.
Neither have I.
And then you have Ofa Tuangafasi and Sam Darry, both of the Blues, have both been injured for the majority of the season. They have not been named in the squad at all. No, not named with an alternative player, just not named at all.
That's the same as well as... I guess you could say Anton Leonard-Brown.
You could say.
It's been out the whole season.
I didn't even remember to put him in here, which is
man.
crazy. Simon,
You just pissed off every Chiefs fan.
I've just pissed off Anton Leonard-Brown. I think I just, because he was injured, I just completely erased it from my head.
Leonard-Brown, shout out to you, cuz.
Anton's great because he can play inside and outside, but we'll talk about centers, and that's tough to break into, especially if you're only naming 4.
Big facts.
But in my opinion, both Tuangafasi and Dowry would have probably made my team if they were fit and continuing to perform at their usual standard. And like Dylan said, we're naming 35-man squads, but we're both naming a 36-man. And from my squad in particular, my squad is based on personal opinion, but also taking into account likely selections.
Mine is based
by him
on
himself.
pretty much the same thing as well. So, with that being said, Mr. Simon, we are finally doing this after months of talking about it.
I think you first, one of the first podcasts we ever did, you said that we'd dedicate a whole episode to a squad selection.
And we are have.
And we're here.
We are have. Oh, well, there you go. There's my
English.
There's my English.
English of the day.
With that being said, shall we go? Now, here's the question.
Yeah.
What order do you want to go? Do you want to go props first? Or do you want to go from the back first? Oh, that sounds weird.
We'll go props first because I think the backs are the more contentious. I think you have to go from the front to the back. So
is that right?
Dylan, this is an All Black squad selection video. Calm it.
Doesn't mean it can't be sus.
Calm it. It's two guys on the couch. It's always sus. Moving on.
That being said, let's go. Now, with yours, I know you've put just props together, stuff like that, loose forwards. I've actually done it by each position.
Well, I have to. I got loose heads and tight heads, but my loose forwards are all thing. But I can split it.
So I have split it by position for the loose forwards.
I can do that on the fly.
Okay, sweet. Let's go. But let's go loose head props, and because it is what do you call it? I was about to say age before beauty, but you were younger than me. We're going to go height before age. So,
hey?
height before age. You're smaller than me, you go first.
Oh, okay, sure. So, loose forwards, the first to obviously pick themselves, in my opinion. Yeah. You have got Ethan de Groot of the Highlanders,
yes, sir.
Currently 26 years old, 27 in July. And you also have Mighty Williams of the Crusaders,
yes,
currently 24, turning 25 in August.
Yes.
These two, your starting and your backup loose head props.
Agreed.
There's no question. Who starts ahead of him? Who knows? Tamaiti started most of the latter half of last year after De Groot was originally suspended for disciplinary issues and we just never got back in the squad. Tamaiti held that place pretty well. I think he's been in better form this season. I think he will be first choice. But De Groot's still great. He's still young. They're both very young.
Yes.
And De Groot's been getting better as the season's gone on. But I think, for me, the real question was that third loose head prop spot because it has been offered to Tuangafasi's spot. And with him being injured, seriously injured, I think it's a neck injury. He won't be coming back straight into the squad. I actually feel like they'll make it difficult for him to return to the All Blacks after this injury, unfortunately.
I do agree.
I have gone with his replacement at the Blues. I've gone with Josh Fusitua. A lot of people have been talking about him as a potential All Black loose head. I think a lot of people said, hey, he deputized for offer well enough at the Blues. He could do it at the top level, which I feel like is a true statement. There are other loose heads who we will talk about, but I'll let you talk about yours first. But I think Fusitua, he's the youngest one of all of his potential new loose forwards. I feel like he probably deserves a chance in. I'm gonna go. I've said this is probably my one sneak of a Blues player, but
one sneak.
But I don't think it's much of a sneak. Honestly, I'm sorry if it was a bit of fluff on my microphone. But yeah, I feel like it would be a good time to bring him in. You're 2 years out from a World Cup. Good to bleed in young players now than soon into the tournament. And I feel like if he holds his fort down, he could be at a World Cup in 2 years' time. Dylan, who have you gone with?
So, I have gone a little bit more, let's call it razor-focused.
Yes.
Pun intended. On this one. So, like you said, I do agree. Ethan de Groot and Tamaiti Williams are your two loose head props. Yep. I'm going to presume Tamaiti Williams is probably starting, but they're your two loose head props. They're your backup. They're your starter.
Not a question.
Young, both young, both great players. Ethan de Groot, I hope he finds his 2023 rugby form again, because I think the front line in 2022 of him, Tokiaho, and Lomax were awesome. Yeah. And I hope they find that again.
That honestly will probably be our starting lineup at the World Cup in 2 years if everything goes to plan.
It absolutely could be. Now, I said if Tamaiti Williams was injured, I do think 24-year-old Josh Fusitoa gets into the squad. He's been awesome for the Blues this year. He was the Blues Player of the Year, which I don't think even we expected.
No.
But he has been awesome, and I do actually truly think he starts over Ofa Tungafasi next year. I'm going to put that out there. I do think that this neck injury for Ofa is pretty tough, and I know he's on the older side of a sports career. So yeah, and I will say comment sections hate his play.
Yeah,
which
he's had a few brain fades in his career, but who hasn't?
Big
So
facts.
it's like, you're just picking and choosing here.
All I remember is that perfect hit. Was it last year on? Was it on the Australian guy?
Yeah, I think I
That was a beauty hit from him, but
didn't he block a drop goal attempt once?
no. So yes, he did, but that was in Super Rugby
against the Brumbies.
Against the Brumbies,
Yeah.
we were at the semi-final when he did.
I remember that game. I was like, didn't Offa once block a drop goal
that
attempt?
was the clutchest block.
And he's a prop for crying out loud.
Bro. He's always been an athlete. So yeah, I do truly think he won't be in the All Black squad 2027. Like you said, the bleed new talent in, but I've gone razor on this. Josh Fusitoa does not make my squad.
No.
I do think that razor at that loose head prop, I do think he would select George Bauer. And that's who I've gone with in that third spot. I know he's older. I'm not sure he'll be at the 2027 World Cup. But I think Razor, at least last year, look, last year was his first year. I think he was favouring experience quite a bit more because it's his first year in the All Blacks.
Yep.
I think that's understandable, although we'll see what he's like as a coach as the years go on. But with that being said, I do think that he does select Bauer for this one. Bauer is, look, he's been an All Blacks outsider for a little bit now. Tamaiti Williams really took his spot at the Crusaders.
Yep.
So there's that. And for me personally, I do rather prefer that if you get into the All Blacks, you are starting in Super Rugby.
Yeah.
Like if I personally don't like having people that are on the bench in Super Rugby then playing for the All Blacks. I think I've got one. I think I've got one guy in the squad that's
I've got one too.
But yeah, look, George Bauer's a solid player. I think he's a solid Super Rugby player. If I had my full personal choice in this, I would not. My special mention would get in instead, or it would be Josh Fusitoa, who would take that third spot. But, for me, I think the three there is Ethan de Groot, Tamaiti Williams, and George Bauer at loose head prop.
And that's a fine selection. So I had Bauer as my alternative for Tamaiti Williams before he was cleared for the final, because my thought pattern was that if you've still got de Groot and Williams, you can name a younger guy to bleed in. But if Williams is also injured, you probably don't want to people who haven't been in the All Blacks before.
I get what you mean.
So I would have called up Bauer in that regard. He hasn't played a test since 2022, but he's had 22 tests to his name. He was pretty regular in the All Black squad for 2 years.
Yeah, he's definitely a regular bench guy for sure.
Yeah, and I think I checked, and he did start quite a few games as well. So he has the experience. He's not at that level now, but he is. He's been there, done that. He knows what to do.
True that.
And there are a couple of special mentions. I've got two written down here. You'll go into depth on one of them. We've got Ollie Norris at the Chiefs, who's only 25, 26 at the end of the year. And then you have the Hurricanes' Xavier Numea, who's currently 26, turning 27 in November. I know you've got Ollie Norris as your special mention. You talked about him yesterday's podcast, that he is a very undervalued and underrated player. Does a lot to help that Chiefs scrum. I feel like he could easily beat Josh Fusitoa to this call-up if they do go for a younger...
And that's the thing, he's only 25, turning 26. Like, that's still young. And that Chiefs scrum, at least by stats, but even by look, is the best scrum in Super Rugby.
Yeah.
And a huge part of any scrum, the biggest part of your scrum actually, is your props up front.
Yeah.
So props must be doing something. So I think Ollie Norris needs to get a little bit more love at that prop spot. That's why he's my special mention. But that was a really weird breath. But I don't see why I see Razor going with who he knows on this one.
Yeah.
I think he's going George Bauer, so that's why I've got George Bauer there. But
And that's fair enough.
Shout out to Ollie Norris, man. I think he needs to get some more love, and if he doesn't, I think you need to go and watch that Chiefs scrum. It is pretty good.
Absolutely.
Speaking of scrum, though, the guy in the middle of the front line
So we are going hookers. That's good.
is the hooker.
Sweet. Cool.
There we go.
Hooker. Do you want me to kick this off again?
Yeah, go for it, my man.
So, in my opinion, starting hooker for the All Blacks, no, you don't agree with this right now. But for me, it's Samisoni Taukei'aho of the Chiefs. He's currently 27, 28 in August. Should have played a lot more rugby last year, but he got injured and missed.
Did he tear his Achilles?
It was either in the semi-final win against the Canes. Yeah, semi-final win against the Canes. And then
which is, can I just say, impressive to come back from and play at the level that he has had.
Because he's been back this year and he's been doing very, very well. And then another easy person to name here, even though he's 34, is Cody Taylor of the Crusaders.
Yep.
He's been the starter before. He knows what he's doing. He might not get there to 2027, but he's a solid backup right now. And I think if he's playing in New Zealand, you call him up for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
And then my third guy, I'm pretty sure we got the same one, is Asofo Almoa.
Yeah.
Although I haven't been completely convinced by him this year.
No, he hasn't had the best
He hasn't had the best year. I feel like if he's fit, he'll be the third choice. However, he has been injured for the past couple of weeks, like I mentioned earlier, and I do have an injury alternative to him, and this is a bit of a controversial one. I've gone with George Bell. My reasoning for this is that Bell was called up by Razor last year, although he's been injured for the most of this year and still has some work to do in his general game. Razor knows him. He's still quite young and a good prospect, and I feel like they'll be making a mistake if they don't give him an opportunity in the All Black system.
Yeah.
So that's why I've gone George Bell ahead of someone who's maybe played a little bit more regularly and hasn't been as injured. But Dylan, do you want to confirm you've gone with the same hookers?
So I have gone with the same hookers, and my replacement has been George Bell, but that is purely for me thinking of what Razor's doing.
Yep.
If it was personally me, and he wasn't going over to France next year, to me, and he should have been selected last year too, it would be Ricky Riccitelli.
I think I would have
That would have
selected
been my injury replacement.
last year. I don't know how Riccitelli, now I think about it, didn't get selected with Taukei'aho injured.
Crazy.
You had Taylor, you had Almoa, and you had Bell. I would have taken Riccitelli over Almoa any day of the week.
And I know that George Bell's young, we're talking 22, 23, somewhere along those lines.
23 years old.
Yeah, I do get that, but I think Riccitelli's a much better player, and I think at the end of the day, you sometimes have to take the much. There was a random sound.
Sound happens.
Take the much better player. Maybe we're getting haunted with the ghost of George Bell, who's who's very alive.
But I've named George Bell, so he shouldn't be haunting us.
Yeah. So, but I've named him as an injury replacement. But I think the three hookers would still be Taylor, Taukei'aho, and Omua. And I think you're probably hoping Asafo Omua has a better year next year.
Absolutely.
But for me personally, I've made one special mention. Simon's made multiple, but my one special mention for the hooker, who you have as well, is a guy that was, because George Bell was injured quite a bit, came off the bench and I think played very well.
Yes.
Young guy too, and that is Ioane Moananu. For the Crusaders. I thought he played very well.
I thought he was very good too when he played. Unfortunately, as soon as Bell came back from an injury, he disappeared from the matchday squad, which is a shame. But a good important thing about Moananu is that he is from Auckland, and
he's Counties guy.
And what team has just lost their starting hooker heading into next season? That would be the Blues. And Moananu next year still has to deal with Cody Taylor and George Bell. If he's off contract, come back to Auckland.
Now here's the crazy thing:
starting role there, right there for you.
Would it though?
Yep.
Because you do have Eklund. Now, Eklund is older.
I think Eklund would be...
But don't get me wrong, Eklund is good.
I think Eklund is good, but I feel like he'd still come off the bench. I feel like he'd be the older head who come off. Yeah. Because I'd have
Moananu, though, happily.
We had Swan Vikina last year, but he moved to the Highlanders. Where I think, very close to making my special mentions. I have Moananu there. Like I said, I was very impressed by him, but if he isn't getting in the squad ahead of George Bell and Cody Taylor, it's probably a bit premature to say he's in the All Blacks. And my other special mention down here is another former Crusaders guy who was injury cover last year but didn't play, Brody McAllister. Now, because of Taukei'aho being injured for a bit of this year, he actually started quite a bit for the Chiefs, played pretty good.
Yeah.
He left the Crusaders last year because there was Cody Taylor and George Bell in front of him, and also now you have Ioane Moananu making waves there. So for Brody McAllister to go to the Chiefs to be Samisoni's backup, probably not the worst idea. I feel like he's done quite well with his chances. He's obviously been benched since Samisoni's been back.
Yep.
But he's a good option. He's been injury cover before. He could easily do it again. He's played more rugby than Bell. But
was Brody McAllister injury cover, or did he get named in the All Black 15?
I think he was All Black 15 and then got called up as injury cover like a Peter Lakai.
Because I can't lie that All Black 15 squad last year, I remember looking at that going, I reckon I've got the players sorted for this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Ollie Haig, name I'd never heard of before.
Yep.
Playing for the Highlanders, he's in. Solar Ma'a, who was the prop.
Is this your personal All Blacks 15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy who I never heard of before. He's in.
There's so many options for All Blacks 15, and I think there's going to be a lot of guys who could make. I think almost.
Is it the Māori All Blacks this year? Do we have an All Black 15?
So Māori All Blacks always play in the July tests at home, and the All Blacks 15 are usually always away, like in Europe or something.
I am interested to see that All Black 15 squad. I'm interested.
I hope there is one this year because I feel like they can do both. The Māori All Blacks is very similar to All Blacks 15, but I don't feel comfortable predicting that because I don't know the tangata whenua of every single rugby player.
No, this is a good point.
So I don't want to.
And even me being part Māori, even I don't know what the.
I don't want to assume and I don't want to guess.
Exactly.
But moving on to one of probably the easiest positions to name here, I have one special mention and I've got 3 tight head props.
Yep.
It's tight head props. And you've got. I'll just go off and do this because I've already started. Sorry, Dylan.
Pop off.
You got one of the best tight heads in the world, Tyrell Lomax of the Hurricanes, 29 years old. Enough said.
Yep.
Back up to him, and I would actually have him as backup this year, is Fletcher Newell of the Crusaders. However, it apparently is suffering from an injury. He's been named in the final squad for the Crusaders, but if he is not fit, then my special mention would replace him. He's 25 years old, still very young. And then Pasilio Tossi was a surprise All Black last year. Form not as good this year at the Hurricanes, where he is Lomax's backup. He's only 26 himself, turning 27 next month. But I feel like he'll probably return. But my special mention is George Dyer of the Chiefs, Ollie Norris's propping partner at the Chiefs.
Yep.
Only 25, 26 in October, and he's been a starter for 3 seasons now. He could honestly get over Tossi now, but I think Tossi will remain because he's been caught up previously.
Yep.
And also, but he will get in if Fletcher Newell's injured. Dylan, do you have the exact same 3?
I pretty much have the exact same 3. My special mention is George Dyer, and once again, I think that Chiefs scrum, even though we applaud their backs and Damien McKenzie for how they go, I think their forwards need more respect, especially that type 5 and especially the props. George Dyer is one of them. I almost picked George Dyer over Tossi, mainly because, like I said before, for me personally, you've got to start at Super Rugby level to get into the All Blacks, but I did think, look, Tossi's still young. Still 26.
I think he's very much a guy who's his profile is he's very good off the bench, and I think that's what he is. And I guess with props, you can kind of make that excuse. That you have specialist bench guys, and I think it might become a thing you see in the future more often.
Agreed.
But do you have anything else to add to that?
Not really, but I will say I could see George Dyer getting in the squad before 2027. I absolutely could.
There is a universe of both Norris and Dyer make the squad.
Absolutely. So, and to be fair, with the form that they're playing, and they should. It's just unfortunate that you've got guys. And it's funny. I think this will become a thing, but I think for the All Blacks, this last year and this year as well, I feel like the story is at most, if not all positions, you either have a lot of guys that are good, but one hasn't proven themselves to be that guy at the All Blacks level yet, or we barely have any depth at it at all.
Yeah.
So the 2 positions, I think that's not the case, is the 2 props. You've got Ethan de Groot, Samaiti Williams at 1. They've both proven to be, I would say Tamaiti's proved to be solid at All Black level. De Groot has been in great form at All Black level. But though those guys are there, and then once again Fletcher Newell's proven to be a fairly good backup at All Black level, as well as Tyrell Lomax has proved to be awesome at an All Black level. So that's the one spot, and I think George Dyer and Ollie Norris both both almost suffer because of that.
Yep.
But with that being said, I'm going to give them special mention and love because that Chiefs scrum is good, and the big reason is those two guys. So
and I fully
let's give
agree
them
with
some
that.
love, man.
Give them some love as we move away from the front row into the second row and our locks. Now, I've named 4. I assume you've named 4.
I've also named 4.
I think we've named the same 4.
Yep.
Without going into detail, I have named Scott Barrett of the Crusaders, Al Capitone himself, currently 31, 32 in November. Tupou Vaa'i of the Chiefs, 25 years old.
Yes,
Patrick Tuipulotu of the Blues, 32 years old. And my second new cap, your first uncapped player, Fabian Holland of the Highlanders, 22 years old, turning 23 in October.
Yeah.
To go into depth a little bit more, Scott Barrett's All Blacks captain. He won't get dropped. Even if I would maybe rather have other people starting in front of him, he's still solid. We can't complain.
Definitely not.
Just don't, concede any more stupid yellows, please, Scott.
And don't play at 6.
And don't play at 6. But we knew that wasn't a good thing 6 years ago. Tupou Vaa'i is probably the best lock in New Zealand.
Agreed.
He's still young. He's got that 5 jersey locked down until further notice, despite the young lock talent coming through, like Sam Darry, who unfortunately has missed all of this year because of injury. I think if he comes back to Super Rugby next year, plays as well as he did in 2024, he will be knocking back on the door, but it won't be for Tupou Vaa'i or Scott Barrett. It'll probably be for one of the next 2 guys. Patrick Tuipulotu, criminally undervalued.
Agreed.
And underappreciated. I've written down here, I'd start him over Scott if he wasn't captain. I don't know if I agree with that right now, although I literally wrote this myself like 5 hours ago. But I think on his day, absolutely, he's been a consistently good performer for the Blues this season, and off the bench as that 20 for the All Blacks. Or
was awesome last year.
He'll be brilliant. Or I think he'll be in the 19, sorry. He'll be absolutely brilliant. And then Fabian Holland, is young, towering, excellent performer for the Highlanders. We need to bleed in some new lock talent. Josh Law just hasn't been that high potential guy we thought he was going to be yet. Fabian Holland's very similar, but he's staying fit and he's playing way more regularly. Give Holland a chance. We get a Dutch-born All Black, which is kind of crazy. And his name's literally Holland as well, which is like...
That is mad.
A bit of a meme in itself.
To be fair, like we could, in the next couple of years, we could have a Dutch All Black and a German All Black.
And a German All Black. Shout out to Anton Segner, who hasn't quite made my special mentions this year or my squad, but he will get there eventually, in my opinion.
Right.
But
Agreed.
Fabian Holland, I can't wait to see him. And then I just mentioned Josh Lord. He's one of my special mentions, as well as his teammate, who's played more often than him, probably better than him, in Naitoa Akoi, who's probably got less potential, less height, but he's still such a great guy for the Chiefs. But moving back to my main 4 locks, you've gone with the same?
I have gone with the same. So I've gone with Scott Barrett, Tupou Vaa'i, who are probably your starters.
Yep.
Patrick Tuipulotu, who's been awesome at 19 last year, and I hope he does the same thing again, although I'm not sure he makes 2027.
I mean, he's only 32 now.
But we'll see what happens.
He'll be 34 at that World Cup, so I feel like he can get there.
But there is a reason I say that. I've also got Fabian Holland as my other lock.
Yep.
But I think so this is interesting, right? First of all, Auckland, because it's the biggest city in New Zealand, probably produces most of the All Black talent. Every single good lock, comes from Christchurch. You've got, or at least plays in Christchurch.
Yep.
So you've got Scott Barrett. He's Taranaki really, but he plays for the Crusaders. Sam Darry's a Christchurch guy that moved up to Auckland and has played great for the Blues.
He made the right decision because I don't know if he gets that game time at the Crusaders
exactly
at the beginning. Now he probably would, but
even in the Crusaders, Shalfoon has been great this year. You got Jamie Hanna.
Yep, and then he would have had to deal with Zach Gallagher because he was still at the Crusaders before this season.
Yep.
Which is another young lock you'd have to butt heads with.
Exactly. So there's 2 interesting things for me. I think Tuipulotu doesn't play at 2027 if Fabian Holland and Sam Darry or another lock. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it is Isaiah Walker-Leawede that turns out to be really, really good and almost kicks him off that squad. Otherwise, he's probably in the squad for 2027.
Shout out to Josh Berry of the Blues, who stepped up this year, impressing a lot of people. Probably not quite yet at that level, but I feel like he's only a season away from it.
I think if Berry can stay within the Blues setup, and Tuipulotu eventually either retires or goes overseas or whatever, he's there starting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with that being said, that's your 4 locks. But I do think if and this only if this happens, if Fabian Holland and Sam Derry, who are the next two up, at least in my opinion, although Sam Derry, I don't think is the type of player yet that you're like, oh, he's like a Wallace Satiti, where like, oh, he's been injured most of the year, but no matter what, he's going to be an All Black. I don't think Sam Derry's there yet.
He's not there yet.
Even though his mum is on the medical staff of the All Blacks. Yeah.
Interesting.
But there you go. So my special mention is a guy who I have loved his game for years. And you did special mention him.
I did.
I'm going to special mention him. His name is Naitoa Akoi.
Yeah.
I have loved his game. Both me and my dad actually love his game. I would love him to get to an All Blacks level.
And he plays
one
a bit
day.
of blindside occasionally too.
He does. But once again, he's that type of guy. He's going to put in the work. He's physical type of player.
Yes.
And look, you're right in terms of potential. I guess he's not the tallest lock in the world, although he's a very tall guy. He's not that type, but man, he can play. I've loved his work, but if Fabian Holland and Sam Derry or somebody else like Naitoa Akoi develop, that's where I think you have two conversations. One is Patrick Tuipulotu still an All Black?
Yep.
And also, do we try Tubo Vai or maybe even Naitoa Akoi himself at blindside flanker? That's the only time I think you do that. But if that doesn't happen, Tubo Vai is, I think, clearly the best lock in New Zealand.
Absolutely.
He's young as you got to keep playing him there.
You do. You have to, and you don't want to fiddle with it too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving away from the locks and to the back row, the loose forwards, we're going to start off with blindside.
Yeah.
I feel my players might be able to cover multiple positions. So
are mine. And can I just say, to me, this has been the most competitive positions.
But I am very confident with my 7.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident with my 7.
Yeah, I've convinced myself.
I've
convinced myself
that
this
is 7. I'm just making sure.
Well, I hope so.
Oh.
Have you miscounted?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I have 7.
Because
we did communications, bruv, not maths.
I know, for good reason.
But to me, this is the most controversial one, and also most fought for spots in the All Blacks this year.
Yes,
I think that changes next year, which we'll talk about later on.
So
but with this guy yawning over here, because this is how long we've been recording, we'll go blindside first. Who you got?
So these guys, I'm going to guess, are primarily blindside. So by this logic, I think I have 2 blindsides. I'm going to say 3 open sides and 2 number 8s.
Yep, agreed.
Wait, is it?
That's what I've got.
Wait, did I do my math?
I did that. I've got 2 blindsides, 2 8s, and 3 opens.
My blindside was last year. My 2 blindsides. We start off with last year's World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year. He plays number 8 at club level, but he was a breakthrough player at blindside, and that is 22-year-old turning 23-year-old September Chiefs loose forward Wallace Satiti.
Yep.
And he is joined by the Crusaders, constantly injury prone, but he is known and he's proven to be good when he's fit. Ethan Blackadder. So what have you gone with?
I have gone with that same. I've gone with Mr. Wallace Satiti, and I've gone with Mr. Ethan Blackadder. Now, I will say this. The Blackadder selection for me is a razor selection. And
partially for me.
Yeah.
I feel like if he's fit, you pick him until he's like clearly lost the league.
Yes, and I will say this now. There's a few Christchurch guys, Canterbury guys, Crusaders fans at work. One of them did say that Ethan Blackadder has had a better career than his dad, Todd Blackadder. That is quite the hot take, and I was like, "Whoa, let's calm down here, mate."
Okay,
let's calm down.
I'm sorry. Has Ethan, as a captain, lifted the Super Rugby title at Eden Park? I know he's won the title at Eden Park, but did he captain them? I don't think so. And I know, I know his dad never won a World Cup. But I actually don't know how many times, from the top of my head, how many times his dad played for the All Blacks. Ethan might be close to that now. But I have to sit down and think about that. But to be fair, he's won more titles than Todd, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He is 30, so he's probably been around the block for just under a decade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Satiti, you got to name him. He could play number 8 for the All Blacks, but I feel like,
he's probably playing 6.
He's probably playing 6. He was so good last year. He keeps his spot. And Ethan Blackadder, if he's fit, you call him up. And should I quickly go over, because I believe I have 3 blindside special mentions. and not
that's fine.
And not
that's
a
fine.
single open side mention.
Same for me.
So I've got Sammy Penifino, who's unlucky to miss out. He was an All Black last year, but I feel like the
It's been
seven
All
guys...
Black the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think the 7 guys who named ahead of him have been in better form and would be more integral.
And can I just say, in comment sections, people, Sammy Penifino, I think gets a little bit too much love.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't... Yeah.
He's very good on his day, and potential-wise, the sky's the limit if you take into account his frame and what type of player he could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to calm our horses, but not just him, but a lot of players who have that potential to be so good. I think I see it a lot with Ruben Love as well, where people are like, oh, he should be starting at 10 for the All Blacks. Now,
let's calm down, Kaz.
Hold your horses. He's good at 10, yes, but hold your horses. But yeah, unlucky for Sammy Penifino. For me, I think he misses out. He spent a lot of the season on the bench, behind Simon Parker, who's another one of my special mentions. He's younger, he's taller, but he's currently injured at the moment. I think he needs another regular season of starting before they seriously look at him for the All Blacks, but that could be next year. And then I've got Cullen Grace, the Crusaders here. I think he's also a little bit underappreciated in a way. He's been involved with the Crusaders for a while. He made his one and only All Blacks appearance almost 5 years ago when he was 20. So he's clearly been at this level before, but just hasn't gone back to that level.
Yeah.
I feel like he could, but I feel like there's just so much of a backlog.
You know what? I do have one open side mention, but we'll get that to the open sides next. But I do,
It's unlucky for Grace because that Crusaders loose forward pack is so good, but
at Super Rugby level,
but only one of them, Blackadder, has really gotten a shot at international level, and I feel like that's probably because loose forwards wise we are stacked as a country. Comparatively,
once again, we're stacked at some really good players, some great players at Super Rugby level, but one has not proven to be that All Blacks guy yet. Yeah, that's where we are with loose forwards. But who knows what will happen over this All Blacks this All Blacks thing. But to me personally, I cannot lie. I said Blackadder was a Razor selection. If it was up to me, my choice, instead of us trying to, I guess, predict the All Black squad, I honestly would pick Simon Parker.
That's a bit cool.
I would have picked Simon Parker, and the reason I say this is this, and I'm pretty sure I said this on the previous podcast as well, in the CouchSide Sports Report. I said that your best ability as a player, and this is any professional athlete, your best ability is your availability.
Yeah.
And for me, Ethan Blackadder, always available for the Crusaders, plays awesome, literally 29 tackles and was everywhere. And to me, if Ethan Blackadder was always healthy, to me, he's your All Blacks number 20. He's the one, he covers 6, 7, can play a little bit of 8, but he's definitely covers 6 and 7. I personally think he's a better blind side than he is an open side. But the problem with him is, and I'm not sure if it's luck, whether it's him not looking after his body properly, which I'm pretty sure it's not. Maybe it's just luck and that's how it is. But anytime he plays for the All Blacks, he's injured. And it just... It sucks. It really, really sucks. So, but I have selected him because I think Razor will select him, and I do think when he's not injured, he's a good player. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I assume Simon Parker's your special mention.
No. Yes. Sorry, Simon Parker is my special mention alongside Sammy Penifino.
That's a good call.
Simon Parker. Look, 25. I don't think it's. I think it's turning 26 this year. I have to double check, but I think it's late on in the year.
Oh, no, he's 25, not turning 20. I think it's early next year.
Yeah. But look at that. 25, we're talking a guy that we've looked for a big number 6 that plays number 6. He has played some number 8 as well, but we're talking a big guy, 6'6", I think almost 120 kegs.
Yep.
And that's the thing I said before. If you're going to play in the All Blacks, personally for me, I need you starting at Super Rugby the majority of the time. And that's what Simon Parker did over Sammy Penifino at 6 for the, I was about to say the Crusaders, for the Chiefs. So that's why I would have selected him if it was my own squad. And he's that young blood we can start, I was about to say bleeding in. But, yeah, so I've gone for blindside, I've gone Wallace Atiti, who can also play 8, and then Ethan Blackadder, who pretty much can also play 7, but has played some 8.
Cool.
There we go.
Well,
let's go open side, big man.
Up to open side, well, just for context, my 2 number 8s, who I'll get to in a sec, can also play open side.
Yes. Same with mine.
Same with his. But I got 3 here. 3 who will be playing as open sides, or primarily playing as open sides. You've got Dalton Papali of the Blues, 27-28 in October.
Yes,
I've written down here, I swear I'm not biased, but another criminally underrated player. Not flashy, but does a lot of work which goes unnoticed, underappreciated by many. Should probably get an extended run as the starting open side if Artie Savia plays number 8.
I am going to overemphasize the criminally underrated. He is, and I'm not, look, you can call this Blues bias, you can call it whatever you want. The most disrespected player in comment sections of rugby posts is Dalton Papali'i.
It's a bit ridiculous. It's a bit ridiculous. Yeah. And then I've also got Luke Jacobson of the Chiefs. He's 28. He's played number 8 to start the season, then moved to number 7 when Wallace Atiti came back. He's played a lot of rugby at both positions. He won't be starting with the All Blacks, but he's handy depth. He could be that 20 guy off the bench. He's also played blindside in the past. And then I have another uncapped player, and that is a guy who's turned a lot of heads this year and has been very impactful for the Hurricanes, and that is Duplessis Kirifi. I think he's been the Hurricanes' best player all season.
Agreed.
He's shown glimpses of his potential in previous years, but now he's just taken it to another level. I think it's very unlikely he will start, unfortunately, because of his size, unfortunately, but he should absolutely be a part of the wider squad, and he should get chances. I feel like, however, if we play with a 6-2 split, that he would be on the bench.
Yeah.
Because we'd have an extra loose forward spot, we can fit him in and have a more versatile player alongside him, which I think might happen this season at one stage or another. But that's who I've gone, and I don't have a special mention because I have 2 number 8 special mentions. But Dylan, do you want to confirm you have the same 3 loose forwards?
So I do have those same 3. Dalton Papali'i. Stop with the disrespect in comment sections. No, literally, I'm reading comments being like, Dalton's not All Black level. What are you talking about?
He should have been starting last year, but Sam Cane was in the squad.
Yeah. Well, no, even then, he got injured.
Yeah.
And I think he would have been starting anyway. I do think once he gets that All Black level, look, he's going to have to prove he is that guy at 7.
I think he can this year.
Yeah, but like you said, he's not the flashy guy.
No.
He's not always going to be the guy that's winning the jackal.
No.
I can't lie. But go and look at tackle stats, and you tell me for multiple years who is the number 1 tackler in Super Rugby, which is the level below the All Blacks. You tell me, because it is Dalton, and I'm going to call him, because this is how I've heard his name, Dalton Papali'i. That is who it is.
Fair enough.
Don't give me that crap. So, Dalton Papali'i's in. Duplessis Kirifi, now he's the jackal guy.
He is the jackal.
He has won a lot of turnovers this year. Almost as much as our favourite flanker of all time, Tava Nawai.
Oh, yeah.
But
for those uninformed, he's not a flanker. He's a centre.
He is a centre. But
more on him later.
But Duplessis Kirifi definitely deserves a spot in this squad, in my opinion. I don't think he's the starting. I don't think he's playing number 20. I do think that it should be Blackadder, but if Blackadder is, and the trend has been, of course, and we just talked about it, he's injured, I do think that would be Luke Jacobson, who I have not always been the biggest fan of, but does get selected in All Black squads. Razor selected him last year. I do think Razor selects him this year.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think the big thing with this is I think something we were missing huge last year was specialists. We didn't have guys that were, specialists getting selected, like we didn't have, Artie Savia, yes, can clearly play 8. He won World Rugby Player of the Year at number 8.
At 8.
But he's not a specialist 8.
No.
Wallace Atiti is not a specialist blindside flanker.
No, he's number 8.
And finally at this position we get some specialists. And I think the All Blacks are missing the balance of specialist and guys that can play versatility.
And I feel like
we find that at 7.
Although we don't have like a specialist blindside, I feel like Blackadder and Satiti make up for it enough. And,
yes,
I think if you do want that specialist 6, that's where you name Fino, but I don't think he gets it over our 7.
And that's where I personally would name Simon Parker.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But number 8's most obvious pick in the world, Artie Savia.
Facts.
Best player in the world. Next. Real question is whether he plays open side or number 8, but I feel like he will return to number 8 with the All Blacks. And then, although last year he was mostly an open side, but this year, to fit in at the Canes, he's been a number 8 and he's played well, and he's played there in the past, is Peter Lakai.
Yes.
He's only 22. He was a surprise injury call-up last year from the All Blacks 15. He earned his place in the squad, in my opinion, after coming on as a sub in the first minute against France, against Sami Penifino. Played the entire game, even scored a try, and didn't look out of place.
Yep.
And he's been a part of a brilliant Hurricanes back row, like I said. He can play number 8 on open side, and he has a huge ceiling. Not selecting him would be dropping the ball on his talent. I don't feel like you can make the call that, we'll bring in Fino because he's more experienced than Lakai. You tell me the positives of bringing in Fino, and then I'll tell you the positives of bringing in Lakai.
Agreed.
And I will blow you out of the water. No, I won't, because I'm terrible at debating. But I feel like Lakai has to stay. I think he's going to be integral to the future. He's not the biggest loose forward in the world, but my God, he's good. I don't know if his future's at open side or at number 8, but it will be somewhere in the All Blacks loose forwards.
I think he has set himself up to be the perfect future number 20.
Yeah, at least a future number 20,
yeah.
But hopefully starting at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And he is probably the only professional athlete in the world who is Tongan Ghanaian, and I absolutely...
Really?
Yeah, he's half Tongan, half Ghanaian.
Eesh.
He said in an interview, people think he's Fijian by his name, but he's actually half Tongan, half Ghanaian.
There you go.
So he's got the Pacific Island genetics and the African genetics.
Yeah.
That's OP as a rugby player.
Also, I completely forgot. I have a special mention at open side.
Oh, yeah. Your special mention at open side.
And I did talk about this in the last podcast.
I know who it is.
Yep. And that is, I'm going to give respect once again to my Christchurch, my Crusaders people. And I'm going to chuck Tom Christie there as a special mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, he's a solid guy at Super Rugby level. I mean, there's a reason why, even though Blackcat is a better 6, in my opinion, I actually think that, you play Tom Christie at 7 because he's that good to play at 7. You have to play Blackadder at 6.
And they've had to move Blackadder to 6 in recent weeks to put Christie at 7.
Exactly.
And Cullen Grace has dropped onto the bench.
Yeah,
and I feel
Tom Christie always been a solid guy, man.
Yeah, I feel like he deserves his flowers, but unfortunately, open side's tough. And I think all the good open sides in the All Blacks have been named or are going to be named. I'm not saying Christie isn't good. It's just so hard to fit all of the valid open sides in there.
I'm sure people who watch this have heard us say, especially the Crusaders, going to be like, Dalton's not All Black level. Shut up.
Shut up,
Bram.
That came from the heart, bro.
Special mention, man, to Tom Christie. Tom Christie's solid.
And so going back to our number 8s, so you'd agree, obviously, Adesavia, and you are agreeing with Peter Lakai.
I have. Those are my 2 guys there. Like I said, Peter Lakai set himself up to be a perfect number 20, but I do hope he starts at some point. I'm not sure where that will be.
That's good.
Maybe.
It depends on the future of Adesavia. It depends on the future of what is Wallace Atiti long-term, a 6 or an 8 when Savia, because I don't think Savia will be involved with the All Blacks post the next World Cup.
Agreed.
So that leaves, we're looking at the squad here, Dalton will be 30, Blackadder will be 32, Jacobson will be 30, Kadifi will be 30, and then Fino will only be 28, Grace will only be 27, Parker will only be 27, Leo Willie will only be 28, and Hoskins Sotutu will only be 28. I've just spoiled some special mentions.
Yeah.
So is he a 7? I'm thinking maybe he is a 7. Maybe he is a 7. Maybe one of those slightly older open sides goes to Japan or to Europe after the World Cup, and there's, for example, only a Dalton and a Luke left, and there's no Kadifi, and there's no other 7s. But again, you'd pick Dalton because he was only 30. But looking to 2031, could see Peter Lakai in starting back row.
If that's the case, and one of them goes over to Europe or Japan or whatever, I think that opens a spot for my special mention number 8.
Who's your special mention?
My special mention number 8. Yes, I haven't used my Blues biased on this one. It is not Hoskins Sotutu, who I think played himself out of an All Blacks jersey in the semi-final. But I think that would be Christian Leawilli.
And I completely agree with that. The Crusaders initially put Tom Christie on the bench this year to allow Leawilli to start at number 8. And you can see why. He's a brilliant player. He's actually from Auckland as well, which is crazy.
Another Auckland guy.
Another Aucklander. I'd love him at the Blues next year, but that's not happening. But yeah, I think he's solid. He's been good for the Crusaders. I don't know if he gets in this year. I feel like Kadifi's spot...
I don't think he does either.
Kadifi is the player you maybe switch out. If Fino gets named and Kadifi doesn't, so be it. But I feel like that's also the position.
That's crazy,
where,
by the way.
I know, but I could see it. I can see it. I can see Razor going, no, we want a specialist, and we already have enough open side depth in Kadifi, so we're not going to name him.
Nah, you know what's going to happen?
No.
You know what's going to happen.
They're not
right?
going to name him over. They won't drop Dalton.
No. I have a feeling.
No. There's no way they'd drop Dalton because he's played way more than Blackadder, and he's probably more preferred than Jacobson. And they wouldn't pick Lakai and not pick Dalton. I think that's a big point.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying.
I don't think that's happening.
But yeah, I think Christian Leawilli will eventually be an All Black. Once again, he's a specialist 8, as plays super solid.
Yes.
And as a young guy too. I think he'll eventually be an All Black. But I don't think it's this year, but I definitely think he'll compete next year.
At some point, and then also I have him as a special mention, but I also had to put in Hoskins Tutu mostly based on last year, mostly based that he's previously been an All Black. And I do think this year he hasn't been up to the right form. That game against Crusaders definitely played him out. But look, if they need a number 8 and they can't call up Leo Willie, then he could get another opportunity. Yeah. But we'll see if they do want to give him another opportunity.
I'm going to go really out of left field here with Hoskins Tutu with this comparison.
Yep.
But I'm not really comparing the players. I'm comparing the skill sets.
Right.
Now, I think it's pretty consensus that the greatest number 8 the All Blacks have ever had is Zinzan Brook.
Closely followed by Kieran Reid.
Yes, closely followed by Kieran Reid. But I would personally call it Zinzan Brook. Zinzan Brook.
Or closely followed by Buck Shelford.
There you go.
Yeah.
But to me, it's Zinzan Brook. And Zinzan Brook was the guy that, once again, he had the kick.
Yep.
He had the pass. Very skilled, similar to a Hoskins Tutu.
Yep.
What is the difference between the both of them, in my opinion? Is the mental, is the head. And I think if Hoskins can sort that out, look, he's still young, like we just said.
He's still young.
What, next World Cup, he'll be, 28?
27, 28. You can completely 180.
Yeah, you know, like if he gets that mentality together, because he's definitely got the physical presence, he's got, to be a better defender, which is what people are doing, and work rate. And I think that's a fair critique. I don't think it was fair last year. I think it's fair this year.
Yeah.
I'm looking at other things, but you look at the skill set he brings, man. To me, it's very similar to a Zinzan Brook.
Yeah.
But he's nowhere near the player that Zinzan Brook is, because it's up here. And I hope he sorts that. That would be awesome, because I think he's got amazing potential, and still does.
So yeah, that rounds out our forwards. I'll quickly run through mine quickly. My props, I had Ethan de Groot, Tamati Williams, Joshua Fusitua, Tyrell Lomax, Fletcher Newell, and Pasilio Tossi. My hookers, I had Samasoni Takeaho, Cody Taylor, and Asafa Almore with George Bell as an injury alternate. My locks, Scott Barrett, Tupavai, Patrick Toipolotu, and Fabian Holland. My loose forwards, Ardi Savia, Wallace Atiti, Dalton Papali, Ethan Blackadder, Luke Jacobson, Peter Lakai, and Duplessis Kitafi.
And then for me, loose head prop, Ethan de Groot, Tamaiti Williams, George Bauer, hooker, Cody Taylor, Samasoni Tokiaho, and Asafo Omua. Tight head prop, Tyrell Lomax, Fletcher Newell, Pasilio Tossi. Locks, I've got Scott Barrett, Patrick Tuipolotu, Tupo Vai, and Fabian Holland. Blindside flanker, Wallace Atiti, Ethan Blackadder. Open side, Dalton Papali'i. That's how I've heard him be called. Duplessis Karifi and Luke Jacobson. And then at number 8, Peter Lakai and Ardi Savia. Oh. And that wraps up the forwards. Now, the loose forwards were at least to me, going to be the hardest selections. The halfbacks are going to be the easiest selections.
We're moving on to the back.
For the All Blacks.
We're 50 minutes in. We're just moving on to the back, and my head hurts. So, scrum half. I'm not lying. Very easy. Cam Roygaard of the Hurricanes, Cortez Radimer of the Chiefs, Don Hoffman of the Crusaders.
Yep.
Roygaard's one of the best scrum halves in the world. He should be starting for the All Blacks for the next two World Cup
He's only 24, right?
He's only 24, 25 in November, so he's younger than me. Crazy. Cortez Radimer's the second best scrum half in the country, and he's a brilliant backup to have. Could be a backup to Roygaard for as long as Roygaard's the starter.
Yeah.
And then Noah Hofman's still quite young at 22. He made his debut last year, but got out of the squad when TJ Petinara got added back in. But I feel with TJ gone, Hofman's the next guy up. Although he can't be too complacent because there is healthy competition for that third scrum half spot between guys who have already been in the All Blacks, although I think only one of those guys long term will be a threat. And I'm just going to name them right now: Finley Christie of the Blues and Folau Fakatava of the Highlanders. I assume you've said the same thing.
I have said the same thing, and I do think it's crazy. Cam Roygaard, 24. Cortez Ratimer, 24. Noah Hotham, 22, turning 23.
It's a crazy young main
group.
Three.
And they are very good.
It could be the same three in the decade, honestly.
It honestly could. But yeah, look, I know your special mentions there, Finlay Christie, Folau Fakatava. I'd love as a Blues fan for Finlay Christie to be it, but anytime he plays at All Blacks level, and he kind of showed it this year with the Blues level, oh man, it's just not been the same.
I think
I think he's an excellent defender.
I think he's been aged out of the squad with Rana and Hotham specifically, and Falau Fakatava. I'm lucky to only get 2 caps 3 years ago. I feel like he's probably 4th choice at the moment.
Yeah,
he would have to rely on an injury to get back into the All Black squad, and even then, there could be an outlier player they bring in. But I think we don't have much to say about scrum half, so unless you have anything else to say, I'm going to move on to the fly halves, which is also very simple. I know you've technically named one of these guys as a fullback.
Yep.
So you've only named one fly half.
Yes, I have only named one fly half.
So I have named 2. I've named Bowden Barrett, and I've also got Damien McKenzie in there. And I assume your only fly half is Bowden Barrett.
My only fly half is Bowden Barrett.
So before I say anything, I'm not going to say who I think is going to start now for the All Blacks until the final is played on Saturday between the Chiefs and the Crusaders. If D-Mac keeps it up, plays well, I'll probably still go with Bowden Barrett. But it's a hard one because Barrett's older. He's maybe at times looked a little bit like past it, but then he has games where he looks like it was 10 years ago. And it's a very confusing thing with players like that. You don't know what way to trust it. But I feel like Bowden's a safer option with D-Mac. He's got more international experience. Someone online tried to say that Barrett has always disappeared in international rugby. That is not the case. The guy's been to a World Cup 2 World Cup.
That's madness.
He's been to 2 as a starter. He said he's always disappeared as a starter. That's not the case. He's been to a World Cup final as a starter and lost by a point. He finished 3rd at the other World Cup where he was a starter, and his unpreferred position at fullback, if he had been starting at 10, who knows what was going on. I'm not saying he should have been playing ahead of Richie. I'm not saying that at all. Just saying. But I think Bowden's a safer option. I feel like, though, if he isn't performing well, you chuck Damien in there, absolutely. Damien's been great this year, but he's played half the season at fullback. A lot of people still see him only as a fullback. I feel like he can play 10, and he has been playing 10. But you've named him at fullback. I think he's probably the 22.
He is, and outside of that, he's the perfect 22.
Because he can play fly half and fullback off the bench brilliantly, bringing on D-Mac with 20 minutes to go when everyone's on tired leads.
And he's a spark plug. He's clearly a spark plug. He's been there his entire career. He's a perfect 22.
Absolutely. So I think, those are my 2 fly halves. And I don't really have any special mentions because Stephen Pettifetta spent most of the season injured, so I can't really name him. And Josh Jacob only got half the season as starting fly half.
So here's the thing, right? So like you said, I've only named one fly half, and that is Mr. Bowden Barrett. I'm going to spoil it, but I have named Damien McKenzie as a fullback. 1, because I think Damien McKenzie as an All Black 10. I'm not sure. I don't think he's an All Black 10. But with that being said, I do actually think Damien McKenzie will play most for the Chiefs as a fullback. Next year, because I think you've got to start Josh Jacob. Because like we've said on previous podcasts, for anybody under the age of 28, who have we got playing for All Blacks at 10?
It's a very good question.
Who you got?
It's a very good question.
You've got to go with Josh Jacob at 10 to me for most of the year next year. So, yeah. And to be fair, he did score a try off the bench in the game against the Brumbies, the semi-final.
He did.
And, man, for a number 10, he runs it up hard, dude.
Yep.
I can't lie.
It's also a brilliant opportunity for him to be the starting team for the Chiefs next year because Sean Stevenson's gone at fullback, so D-Mac will probably have to cover that position.
Yeah. But, yeah, I've got Bowden Barrett, but I do have a special mention. And it's mainly based off of what happens next year.
And honestly, this is a very valid special mention, and I can't believe I didn't think of this myself.
But that special mention
he would have been there.
Is Mr. Brett Cameron.
Former brief All Black. I think he's got 1 cap or something.
Yeah.
Injured most of this year, came back to the Canes and was running the shop straight away.
Yeah.
Ruben Love went straight back to fullback when he was fully fit to start. And I completely see where you're coming from because he's looked...
Now, here's the thing. Once again, for some reason, these Hurricanes players, size concerns. Duplessis Carriffy, size concerns. Peter Lakai, somewhat size concerns.
Yes, somewhat.
Once again, Brett Cameron, and I looked this up, is a 5'9" fly half.
Hey, represent the
brothers. But I think, I'll tell you this, last year, when the Blues won the final against the Chiefs, and the Hurricanes bombed it in the semi, the reason why the Hurricanes were in the first place. Number 1, Geordie Barrett was still there.
Yes.
But number 2, Brett Cameron was playing out of his mind at 10. If he can have a similar season, and we're talking about a guy that's 27, probably going to turn 28. If Brett Cameron can have a similar season to the one that he did in 2024, Man,
Yeah,
I think he may be there.
I think he could be there.
And look, you have size concerns. To me, I don't care. If you can play the position,
they've
man.
read some D-Mac, short fly half,
there you
does
go.
well there.
So yeah, Brett Cameron's my special mention there, because I think if he has a similar season, that could be a dude there.
Moving on. Do you have centers?
Of course I have centers, mate.
I mean centers next.
Yep.
Cool.
Of course I have centers next.
Cool. This one, contention here as well. Very contested position. I've gone for 4, and I have gone with fresh of a URC title, Geordie Barrett.
Yes, sir.
The internet's biggest enemy right now, Rieko Ioane. A instant impact return from injury, Billy Proctor of the Hurricanes, and a long-awaited All Blacks return in the Chiefs' Quinn Tupaia.
Yes,
Geordie
sir.
Barrett, Rieko Ioane, I'm running that to start the season. If Rico's not, up to scratch, give Billy Proctor a chance. He comes back from injury and he's just as good, if not better, than he was previously. Only got brief cameos last year, deserves more chances. I feel like, if Rico's not pulling in the shift he needs to, give Billy a chance, because I feel like he will do that. And then Quinn Tupaia, All Blacks' career was potentially cut short back in 2022 after that horrific clear-out attempt from Darcy Swain in the Bledsoe Cup game.
How he's still playing rugby, insane.
Who knows? But Tupaia missed basically the entire next year of rugby because of it. Only played NPC, missed out on a World Cup spot, which he probably would have had. And then 2024 was still getting back into the Super Rugby groove, was starting a lot of games on the bench, wasn't being sniffed for the All Blacks. Now he's back in it. He's starting at 12. He's looking great for the Chiefs. And there are some other centres who probably could get him ahead of him. In fact, every special mention I have is not an outside centre. They're all primarily inside centres.
Yeah.
It's tough, but I think Tupaia has more upside than the other guys I've mentioned now. Although I do really like the Blues mention here because bias. But yeah, that's what I've got. I think Tupaia could also potentially be the 23 because he's played on the wing before. Because I've currently got a winger who's only very briefly played centre as my 23 at the moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say my special mentions, and my 36 man is Tomohi Tawatawanawai of the Highlanders. Sensational is just one word to describe how he's been for the Highlanders this year. Playing like a flanker at centre, but still doing all the centre stuff. Previously, it's only his first season as an inside centre too.
Yes,
he's been a winger beforehand, so as a potential 23, he could be great. And then I've got David Haverley. It sucks not putting him in here because I know how good he is for the Crusaders. I know he hasn't been just that great for the All Blacks, but he's not starting ahead of Geordie Barrett, and I feel like he's 30, you're 2 years out from World Cup. You give Quinn Tupaia or a different inside centre a shot. And I've got AJ Lehman here, solid centre.
Yeah.
Who's also previously been a winger.
Yeah.
I think he's just behind the pecking order, but I feel like he can get in there at some point and be potentially a 23. But I feel like next year with no Rieko Ioane and him probably in the centres with Xavier Taeli with the Blues, we could see some remarkable improvements.
Yeah.
And that's what I've gone for. Dylan, do you want to confirm?
Yep. So that's my 4 there. Geordie Barrett and Quinn Tupaia at 12, and then Rieko Ioane and Billy Proctor at 13. Now, before this, you said to me, that you thought centres was the most competitive position.
Also forgot to mention Anton Leonard-Brown, currently injured.
Yes. Now, I'm going to say this. I do not think it is this year, but I really think it is next year. Now, we did also have this conversation off record as well. Leicester Whainganuku, who is coming back next year for the Crusaders, will be eligible for French Series, Rugby Championship, etc. Yep. We believe. I don't think he gets selected unless he comes in as injury cover or something along those lines. But I'll tell you what, not only the centre competition for next year for the All Blacks, but the centre competition at every Super Rugby team, maybe except the Highlanders
and the Blues,
and somewhat the Blues, is insane.
It's insane. No wonder Peter Amanga Jensen is leaving the Hurricanes, which we forgot to mention yesterday. He's going to Japan because the Hurricanes have Geordie Barrett, Riley Higgins, Billy Proctor, Balin Sullivan, and other players have probably forgotten.
Can I just say that Hurricanes team looks so good?
It's a bit scary heading into next year, and I feel like they might not choke it like they did last year with that team.
Yeah.
But yeah, Leicester Whainganuku I haven't named as even a special mention. I have, spoiler alert, named him as a wing special mention because that's where he last played for the All Blacks, although if he's been selected, you pick him as a centre. It's not fair to pick him as a winger in front
Agreed.
of another winger. But do you have anyone else you want to spotlight or any special mentions?
So my special mention at 12 was David Havili.
Yep.
So there was a recent clip that came out of James O'Connor. Pretty much saying that, how come Havili hasn't been looked at the centre spot? Because he sucks for the All Blacks, mate. No, I'm just playing. But it's not wrong. But he's an Australian. I had to go at him.
Yeah,
but
raised in New Zealand for a decent chunk of his childhood.
This is a good point.
Went to Rutherford Primary School.
This is a good point, but he did choose Australia. So, no,
could have chosen South Africa too.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But that being said, look, Havili for the Crusaders, I won't lie, is great.
Yeah.
But when he plays for the All Blacks, it's not the same thing. I think he's had ample opportunities. Like you said, he's turning 30. To me, he didn't make the squad last year either. I don't think he's making it this year. Quinn Tupaia does not get nearly enough love.
No, I don't think he does.
At all. This dude has come back from pretty much a busted up knee.
Yep.
Came back and has played himself back into an All Black squad, in my opinion. And another thing I'm going to say, and I've said this to you, and I don't think this gets talked enough about either. When we've talked about the All Blacks since 2019, and we talk, especially that England semi-final, we always talk about All Blacks struggle against blitz defense. Blitz this, blitz that, blitz whatever. And the thing with Rieko Ioane, and I think Jordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane, great tandem at centre, almost won us a World Cup in 2023. If it wasn't for missed kicks from Richie Mo'unga and Jordie Barrett, we probably would have won it with 14 players. But look, I think it's a fair critique of Rieko Ioane is his passing.
Yep.
His passing, has left something to be desired. Anything outside of that, come at me. I think he's made himself an excellent defender. He's absolutely done the job at 13. And if you want to blame somebody for him not being on the wing, which I see way too often, blame Steve Hansen for the 2019 World Cup selections. But in saying that, I have wondered why do we not select Jordie Barrett at 13, a much more skilled guy.
He's played there before.
And he's a guy that's, kicking up. Oh, not kicking up, but he's a guy that can definitely pass the ball to get out of that blitz defense. Why not put a hard-hitting runner 12 at 12, like we did, funnily enough, with Ma'anonu, and have pretty much a taller Conrad Smith and Jordie Barrett at 13, who can still do the job he does at 12, but is a better passer out to the wingers.
Yeah.
Why have nobody thought of that?
No.
How's that not been thought of? So that's what it is to me.
Should be listening right now because Dylan's onto something.
That's what it is to me.
He's got his coaching cap on. He's got his jersey on. Put him on, coach.
There we go. But that's the thing, right? You've got to find that 12. Yep. So do you maybe put Rieko Ioane at 12 or Billy Proctor at 12? Or do you go with somebody? And I said he wasn't an All Black, but man, he might be. And I do hate what we do to players like this. But is Tava Nawai that perfect 12?
Jim
the difference is that, is he that guy there? Is Quinn Tupaia, which I've actually said I actually would like to see.
AJ Lamb that guy?
There you go.
Zavi Taili that guy?
There
are a lot of potential dudes here.
There you go, and that's how you know Simon's tired when he's buttoning like that.
Oh, yeah, Jesus. It's not even that late. Like, hold on, let me look at my phone.
But while you look at the time.
It's only 9:16. The last couple of weeks, because we've had to be recording these later because of Dylan's work.
Yeah,
we've been finishing at like 9:45. But the thing is, we've already recorded for an hour before this, so this is like almost 2.5 hours in now. And I'm starting to feel it because I still haven't had dinner and I haven't had probably a sip of water in about.
Yeah, man. Well, we got to look after you. But
once we cover the last two positions, I'm gonna have a glass of water at yours.
Well, technically 3, but yeah,
no, 2.
Well, you got 2 wingers. Left and right.
Shut up.
I know. Shut
up. I've not specified left.
But
or right.
But in terms of the 4, for me, it's Jordie Barrett, Quinn Tupaia, and then you've got what's his name? Then you've got Rieko Ioane, and then you've got Billy Proctor. Those are the 4 centres.
Good on you.
There we go.
Wingers. Have to say a few things about some of these guys because some people might not select some of these people for certain reasons.
Yeah, in the comment sections.
Perhaps with everything. I've gone with Caleb Clark, Mark Talea, Imoni Narawa, and Sevu Reece. So I have to clarify. Clark hasn't been as good as last year, but he's still very good. I've written down here, he's still was brilliant last season, and although he isn't performing as well as this season, he's still a great winger whose main exploits mostly come from progressing the ball and winning it off high balls rather than scoring tries. And I feel like a lot of people forget to realise that when they look at his try-scoring record this year and saw he didn't score a try.
To be fair, even if they want to say he doesn't score tries, go look at his try-scoring record for the All Blacks last year. He was the All Blacks' top scorer of the whole season.
Yeah, he was great.
There you go. And then, I think you've got to... I know that the world is what have you done for me recently.
Yep.
But recently, the most recent All Blacks, he was that guy.
He was that guy.
When there were a lot of wingers struggling for form. So I think you're picking Caleb Clark.
And then I have named Mark Talea, although he's off to Japan at the end of the season, so he won't be a long-term thing. Razor picked Sam Cane all of last year, and he didn't play a single domestic game in New Zealand. So
yes, I
feel like you don't miss out on Mark Talea's ability when you have the chance to cap him. You just cap him. I know we don't have him next year, but he's available. Use him. And then I've got Imoni Narawa, has been outscored by his fellow Chiefs wing Leroy Carter. More on him later, but he's been a very solid part of our backline. He deserves more chances as an All Black, and he might end up starting early on if Razor isn't sold on either Clark's form or isn't enticed by Mark Talea or Sevu Reece. He can also cover the centres, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. And then
Narawa,
Sevu Reece then hasn't been great this year compared to last year. He got phased out of the All Blacks last year by Mark Talea eventually because it was just apparent that he was better than Reece. He'll probably get named, honestly, because, he's Sevu Reece. He had a good start to the season. He went 6 games without scoring a try, and the next time he scored one, he broke the all-time try-scoring record for Super Rugby, which, fair enough, you have to be good to do that.
Big facts.
But, yeah, I think he'll get named, but I don't think he should be starting. And my special mentions, we mentioned Lester Fainaunuku earlier. I've got him down here, although he should be named as a centre. I just mentioned him, Leroy Carter. He was very good for the Chiefs this year.
Very good.
More tries than Narawa. Great convert from NZ7s. And then Shafi Haki has been ever present on mostly the right wing for the Crusaders. Will miss the final due to concussion. Not the most tries. I think he's still got 6 or something. But also he is that type of fullback moved to winger type of player that we always love to play at 14. And then we have a guy who should have been in the All Black squad, in my opinion, but he got a groin injury after 8 games, and he won't get named after that injury because he still needs to play more rugby, is Caleb Tangito of the Highlanders. He, I think, had 6 tries in 7 games before getting hurt. Another big season for him next year, and he's in the All Blacks. And then Kenny Naholo was doing very well for the Hurricanes, but as soon as he was getting all the big hype, he blew his ACL, but it was a knee injury. And he was supposedly on his way to Japan at the end of the year anyway. So I'm not sure what the deal is with him, but he wasn't named in the Hurricanes' recent departure list. They named 8 players who were leaving, and he wasn't on that list. So he might be back at the Hurricanes next year. But those are my wingers and my special mentions. Dylan, just to save us some time, you picked the same 4, didn't you?
Yep, I picked the same 4. Caleb Clark, Sevu Reece, Mark Talea, Imoni Narawa. Look, I've been hypercritical of Sevu Reece. People know this that have talked sport about me, sport with me. Sevu Reece is a great Super Rugby player. He's, but then for some reason wants to become a flanker when he's an All Black. For me, that's a razor pick. I personally would personally probably have Leroy Carter there.
Yep. Absolutely.
Who I think will eventually be an All Black if he keeps the form he's on this year.
I would have had Carter over Reece if I had full control and didn't have to worry about bias.
Reece has been in the All Blacks for quite a while. Solid player. Maybe he's the 23. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, look, he's in there. For me, Caleb Clark, I think off his All Blacks form last year, you've got to keep him in. Has he had the most solid season this year? No. But once again, a guy that gets quite the disrespect and comments. Mark Talea, I know he's going to Japan, but eventually when he goes, winger's going to become a huge thing, especially with, like you said, Caleb Tangito, Macca Springer, Kyron Tomoifalau, who we've mentioned multiple times. Who else is there? Leroy Carter, you can add into that as well. And my other special mention, Shea Fihaki, who the reason I special mentioned him was because I didn't think he should have been brought in as All Blacks injury cover last year. But he is potential. And like you said, he's that fullback convert to winger. So
not the paciest, but he's got a big size on him and he can kick and, he fits that mould perfectly for what they like in the All Blacks.
Exactly.
And I don't think we have anything else to talk about the wingers apart from Kyron Tomoifalau. It's been sensational in Super Rugby this year. However,
from Moana,
his eligibility still lies with Tonga until October next year because he played for Tonga in 2022 and 2023. He is born and raised in New Zealand. He's supposedly moving to the Chiefs next year, which just isn't fair. And I feel like if he keeps the form up next year, and in the year after, because I don't know if I'd call him up just for the Northern Tour unless he is the top try scorer in Super Rugby and we're not happy with our wingers or one of our wingers.
Yeah,
so maybe he gets a Northern Tour look in next year, but I feel like it will be you have to perform well in 26, perform well in 27, and then you get named. But that's looking quite forward into the future. And then finally, fullbacks, you've named 3. One of them's Damian McKenzie. I've named 2 because I named him as a fly half. And we've got the same 2 because these are obvious picks. Will Jordan is your All Blacks fullback. Do not move him to the wing. Do not swap him out for anyone like D-Mac or Barrett. He is your fullback. Do not change that. Just period. I don't have to explain myself. And if people want to talk
about his try-scoring record at fullback, it's still amazing anyway.
It's almost as better as it was on the wing.
Exactly.
At least when he was playing fullback for the All Blacks last year.
Keep him a fullback, big man.
And then Ruben Love, great season for him at Super Rugby. Spent a decent chunk of it at fly half where he was showing promise but still needed a little bit fine-tuning. Brett Cameron came back, took the position off him, but at fullback...
He's definitely a fullback.
Very, very good. Very exciting young player. Got some cameos last year. I think he'll be an All Black for a while, but he won't be a starter for a little bit. But I feel like if Will Jordan's not available, Ruben Love is a perfect fullback option.
Absolutely.
I don't think he should be put on the wing. I see some people suggesting he play for the All Blacks on the wing. Are you mad? But he's played on the wing for the All Blacks before, but against I think it was like Fiji and Japan, which they obviously were only playing there because they needed numbers on that side.
Yeah.
And then special mentions. I have got a former Blues guy, Jacob Ratu
Maitavuki Neepkins.
I could say it if my head didn't hurt.
JRK.
He's every time I've seen him play for the Highlanders, he always looks like he can inject anything into the game.
Facts.
He looks like he's got that little step in him that he can change the game in an instant. I felt like if he was on a better team, he'd get way more names, way more named way more by other people. Yeah. And then based on this game against the Crusaders last week, I've chucked San Sullivan into here because I feel like if he can play like that every week, next year for the Blues, at fullback, then why not have him in the conversation? But I feel like it's Will Jordan and Ruben Love. That's easy peasy. There's other fullbacks around. Sean Stevenson's off to Japan full time, so he's not going to be considered. Although he could still be named. I feel like he hasn't been a consistent member of the All Black squad at all to be named.
It's tough because I love him. Auckland Grammar guy. Love him to death. Yeah, North Harbour guy as well. So of course I'm going to love him. I had an awesome. Was it 2020? Was it 4 or 3 season?
I think it was 22 and 23 where he was at
awesome.
His best.
And then just a devastating injury in 2024 was on and off since then. But when he's on, man.
He's on.
He's on.
And shout out to Corey Evans at the Blues for stepping up this year.
Big facts.
Callum Harkin at the Hurricanes for stepping up this year.
Big facts.
And all the other fullbacks in the world.
Hi, Amy and Connor, because supposedly my catchphrase has now become Big Facts.
Big Facts.
And I'm fine with it.
No, I actually have a request.
You have a request?
I have a request.
With that being said, I've got Will Jordan, I've got Damian McKenzie, who was a fullback, and Ruben Love, my special mention, also Jacob Ratu, Maitavuki Neepkins, but I'm going to... Can I special mention the entire Highlanders team?
Yeah, fair enough.
And I'm going to say this because if they can develop their young talent, who a lot they've signed on to keep, Oliver Haig, 22, 23, looks great at 6, played the All Blacks 15. Is it Vasanga or Vasaka at 7?
Lasaga?
Sorry, Lasaga. I couldn't remember if it was a V or an L at the start, but he's 23. If he consistently starts and develops at 7, maybe he's in that conversation. You've got Jacob Ratu Maitavuki Nebkins, JRK at 15. Like you said, every time he plays, he injects something. He's awesome. Finn Hurley as well at fullback.
Love to see more of him
Maybe
next
you
year.
put JRK at 14. Then you have Caleb Tangito at 11.
And like I said about JRK, he fits that mould of a fullback turned winger who the All Blacks really like, and that might be the only way he gets into the All Blacks.
Absolutely. And then once again, you've got Tavatava Nawai at 12. You've also got, of course, Ethan de Groot at loosehead. You've got another guy who made the All Black 15 last year, my guy Let's Talk Sport. On TikTok. I've never met him before, but he seems like an awesome guy. Hopefully we meet him one day.
I believe he's a radio.
Yeah, he's a radio guy.
I see him in the old radio studios at AUT. I was like, I know that studio.
My guy.
I spent plenty of hours in that studio.
But he's a big fan of Solar, I think it's how you say it, Solar Ma'a, who is the tight head prop for the
I think
for the Highlanders.
Next year he could be a special mention, if not in the squad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you what, if the Highlander, Fabian Holland, let me not forget, if the Highlanders keep developing that talent.
Also, shout out to Mitch Dunshaw. He's on that team as well.
Absolutely, man.
Shout out to TK Howden.
TK Howden, another young guy.
To Jack Taylor, to Falau Whakatava, to all of the scrum halves they have there as well, because they have quite a few.
You've also got Cam Miller, 22-year-old. Tane Robinson was pretty solid at 10 this year.
Jonah Nariki as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, if they can keep developing that talent and keep them down there in Otago and Dunedin, that's going to be a team. But the thing is, the reason why they're so down now is, I think, mainly because they're young.
Yeah, I think it's the inexperience, but
they got some talent down there, man.
Maybe they get like a veteran in there.
But what is your request, sir?
Oh, so you said Big Facts or something just before. What was Big Facts?
It was you naming off. It was you talking about Zan Sullivan. I'm pretty sure it was.
So this is a special request from Amy. She told me to ask this on a scale of big to facts. How big is that fact?
Ooh. I can't remember what it was, to be honest.
Oh, no.
But I'm going to make a rating anyway, from big to facts.
Yeah.
Are we saying big is low, facts is high? Is that what we're saying?
Maybe big is like, it's a big question, like a big statement.
Okay.
But facts is, it's definitely facts.
Okay, I'm going to say big just to be safe, because I don't remember what my last big facts was. But it is big facts and facts.
Are you related to the Mitre 10 guy?
No, but I should be.
Big deals, Mitre 10.
But
bring him back.
Nah, I wish I was related to the Pack and Save guy, Mr. Paul Ego himself.
Oh yeah,
but there you go. But big. It is big facts that I think if the Highlanders can develop their talent, then we're tired. Then that and yes, I did just censor myself. But I think it is big facts that if the Highlanders can develop their talent down there, that's a team down there, man. Can Jamie Joseph do it?
And I'm going to say it, what Dylan just said about the Highlanders and their young team, if they can develop it, they can be very good, is big facts.
It's big
It's
facts.
a Simon Cooper big facts.
Now, we're going to do this very quickly because I know you're tired.
Oh, boy.
But also, my 36th man, I forgot to mention my 36th man.
Who was it?
Is Mr. Tavatava Nawai.
Yeah,
that's my 36th man. With that being said, you have a starting lineup there.
Yes, and also just rolling up my backs very quickly. Scrum halves, Cam Roygar, Cortez Rataman, Noah Hotham. Fly halves, Bona Barrett and Damien McKenzie. Centres, Geordie Barrett, Rico Ioane, Billy Proctor and Quinty Paya. Wingers, Caleb Clark, Mark Talea, Imoni Narawa, Severies. Fullbacks, Will Jordan, Ruben Love. 36 man, Tamohi, Tavatava Nawai.
And pretty much the same for me. Halfbacks, Cam Roygar, Cortez Rataman, Noah Hotham. First five, I've got Bowden Barrett. Centres, Geordie Barrett, Rico Ioane, Quinty Paya, Billy Proctor. Wingers, Caleb Clark, Mark Talea, Severies, Imoni Narawa. And fullbacks, Will Jordan, Damien McKenzie, and Mr. Ruben Love. Who's your starters?
So, I did this yesterday. Earlier today, but probably it feels like yesterday. And I don't think this is going to change too much, apart from maybe my 23. But I'll get to that when I get to that. So my starting props are to Mighty Williams and Tyrell Lomax. My starting hooker is Samisoni Takiaho. My starting... Sorry. Oh, that almost went up.
Yeah, please.
Jesus Christ.
Let's get this done.
Jesus. Scott Barrett, Tupou Vai. But I threw up. I almost threw up when I had to mention that Scott Barrett's my starting lock. I think that's a sign. Jesus.
Dude, Mac. All right, Mac.
I wonder how the McDonald's after this is gonna sit.
Oh, this is gonna.
Definitely
You're gonna
what
have
I'm
fun
getting.
with
that. I've got Wallace the TT at blindside, Dalton Papali at open side, and Artie Savia at number 8. Cam Roigard, Bowden Barrett's my halves duo. Caleb Clark and Mark Talayer on the wing. I've gone double blues.
Yes, sir.
Geordie Barrett, Rico Ioane in the centres, and Will Jordan at fullback. Should I do my subs now?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got my backup front row, Ethan de Groot and Fletcher Newell as the props, with Cody Taylor as the hooker. My backup block is Patrick Tuipulotu. My backup loose forward is Ethan Blackadder. My backup halves are Cortez Aratama and Damian McKenzie, who's also fullback cover. And instead of Imoni Nadawa, who I've got down here, I'm actually going to name Quintu Paia as my 23 because he's played on the wing. I feel like more times than Nadawa has played in the centres, and I feel like he's probably better on the wing than Nadawa is in the centres.
All right. Well, I will go with my starters, who I have. No, this is right off the head. This is right off the fly.
This is crazy.
So I've got loose head prop, my starter, even though I'd love it to be Ethan de Groot. I think it's going to be Tamaiti Williams. Hooker. I've gone with Cody Taylor. I still think he has a good year of starting left in him, but I hope it's Tokiaho by the World Cup. Tight head prop, Tyrell Lomax. For the lock starters, I've got Scott Barrett, who I will not throw up for, and Tubo Vai.
I'm so sorry, Scott. I didn't mean that.
Don't you mean dog roll?
Dog roll, yeah. Why they call him dog roll, who knows?
Yeah, we'll let you figure that out. With number 6, I have gone with Wallace Titi.
Yep.
Number 7, I've gone with the criminally disrespected Dalton Papali'i.
Yep.
I've gone number 8, Artie Savia. Halfback, Cam Roigard. First 5, Bowden Barrett. And with me ranting before about swapping Geordie Barrett to 13 and having somebody else at 12,
yeah,
I'm going to do that with my starting lineup.
Go for it.
I'm going to go with Geordie
yours.
Barrett at 13, and I'm going to go with Quintu Paia.
12.
Starting at 12. Left wing, I've got Caleb Clark. Right wing, I've got Mark Talea. And at fullback, I've got Will Jordan.
Excellent.
Then we're going to the backup props, like you, Ethan de Groot. Loose head, Fletcher Newell, tight head. Backup hooker, Samasoni Tokiaho. At the backup lock, Patrick Tuipulotu. At 20, Ethan Blackadder. 21, Cortez Aratama. 22, the perfect 22, Mr. Damian McKenzie. And with number 23, now that I've selected Geordie Barrett at 13 and Quintu Paia at 12, I do think a perfect 23 is Mr. Rico Ioane.
Fair enough.
There we go. And that is our All Blacks. If you disagree with us, I'm fine. I say I'm fine. We're fine he needs to not have food and water. We are fine with discussing that.
We're good.
Have the comment sections, but please let's not be toxic, guys. This
Nah,
is sport.
it's everyone's opinion, and I didn't mean it when I said I'd throw it up at the thought of Scott Barrett. It was just a coincidence.
Yes.
But everyone's entitled to their opinion, but some opinions are stupid. None of ours are. So feel happy to ban us in the comments. And you know what? We'll have a good time about it.
Yeah, we wanna,
within reason.
Yeah.
Like if I see another person suggesting Ruben Love for the wing, get out.
Yeah, like look, we want to create a community where it's
it's
not always going to be perfect.
Say that because we want to have these good discussions.
We want them, man.
We want to hear you out and see.
Yeah.
So why do you think a player who's not played wing all season should play on the wing for the All Blacks? We want to hear your reasoning and for all of your shenanigans because we've described ours.
Yeah, but your reasoning can't be, I hate this team, so I'm going to select this guy.
No,
come on, let's not be toxic here. Let's create a majority positive sports community to
positive
talk
relationships,
sports. And that's what we want here because that's what we do.
Positive pyramids. That's what we used to say in cup stacking.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what we do, sitting on the couch talking sport, and that's what we want you to join us and do too.
Please do.
With that being said, thank you so much for joining us for the CouchSide Special Report All Black selection. Now I have a thing to throw out there for you.
Oh no.
Do we make an episode where we just recap the squad that gets selected?
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to recap it at some point anyway.
Well, we're gonna recap the squad on Monday on our podcast because we won't have to talk too much about it. We'll probably just name players that we thought will get selected and weren't selected, and maybe talk about why,
Yeah.
but I'm never doing a back-to-back recording session again.
Yeah. And with that being said, he chose to do it. I did not choose to do it.
This was my idea. And for some reason, my brain was like, "You're getting headache now." I'm like, "Sorry, what?"
And also, towards the end, if you heard a random sound, it is my dad's car coming down the driveway.
Oh.
So, with that being said, we're definitely going to have clips of this for sure.
Oh, jeez. Well, you're telling me which ones they are, and I'm not doing shit about it.
I'm
till
completely
the other day.
fine with that. With that being said, go and follow us
Please
on
do.
the Insta and TikTok at CouchSide.network. Go and see this on YouTube as well, CouchSide Network. Search that up. Simon, let's go get you some food and water.
Please.
And with that being said, that's our All Black squads. Say less. CouchSide out.
Couch is out. Was that English? Couch side out. I'm okay. Trust me.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here.
Oh.